Hello. Welcome back to Chapter 9 of The Way of the Superior Man. Every chapter is my favorite chapter. This one is one of my favorites as well. Do it for love. And this is my favorite line in this favorite chapter. The way a man penetrates the world should be the same way he penetrates his woman, not merely for personal gain or pleasure, but to magnify love, openness, and depth. And you can think about just having a greater intention behind any action, especially sex, which is kind of this vehicle for connection. Um, it can really transform the whole experience. The next time you embrace your woman sexually, feel your ultimate desire, your deepest desire in life. Feel why you are doing anything at all in life, and specifically, why you are uniting with your lover. There may be many reasons, but what is your deepest, ultimate reason? I think that's really powerful because when you can feel into your deepest why, even for something like sex, right, it brings so much more depth to it. Because if you imagine having sex where it's just the lesser reason, right, is just because I'm feeling horny right now. But if there's a deeper reason where it's like, oh, I want to expand our connection or I want to open her to God or something, then it changes every action that you do in the moment. And also makes me think about how many people live every action truly from their depth. Um, Not many, because like it's difficult. Most of our day to day is just kind of like zombie or sleepwalking. Right? We're kind of on autopilot. I go to work, I come home, I watch TV, and then I go to bed and I repeat. But we don't really try to do every action, even something mundane like brushing our teeth, with intention from our deepest core. Most men's ultimate reason for doing anything has to do with discovering their deepest truth, enjoying total freedom and love, and giving their fullest gifts. Yet many men settle for enjoying a little bit of freedom and love while incompletely giving their gifts. They enjoy the freedom to buy a nice car, to have loving sex fairly often, and to sleep late on Sunday. They generously donate their spare cash to a good cause, lovingly buy their woman a diamond ring, and happily coach a little league team. These are enjoyable freedoms and real gifts that make a significant difference in people's lives. But for many men, it is still not enough. I really like this because it uses the word settle, and that's what a lot of times happens. Because it's really easy to live that comfortable life, where we have a good partner, where we do have great sex, we have nice cars, we get to sleep late on Sunday. It's very comfortable, but then is it truly fulfilling for us? Um, and so this brings us to the next paragraph. The freedom or love they have achieved and the way they have given their gifts often leaves a sense of incompleteness. Something is still lacking. There is still a desire to go beyond, to untrap themselves, to enjoy life free of a subtle sense of constraint, loneliness, underlying tension, and fear. And for many men, try as they might, the sense remains that their fullest gift remains ungiven. Their life feels somewhat false at its core, as does their sexing. And I think that's true, whether for men or women, living in our kind of our stereotypical autopilot lives, it feels comfortable, but at the same time, I feel like we can intuit that there's something deeper that we're somehow not doing, and we're just kind of going through the motions right now. The analogy I like to think of is kind of like we're building these elaborate sand castles, but they're not truly, I guess, solid. When a man gives his true gift of sex to his woman, he penetrates and blooms her beyond all limits into love. It is the same with the world. To bloom woman and world for real takes authenticity, persistence, and courage of heart. A man must know the truth at his core and be willing to give his gifts fully. No holding back. He must be willing to dedicate his sex and his life to magnifying love by penetrating woman and the world with his true gifts. This willingness is rare. Um, and this reminds me of something I've read in one of my Tantra books, where it talks about penetration during sex. If there's deep intention and love behind it, it can be very healing to the woman. Um, and it's just that that doesn't really happen often, I think, for most types of sex. It's 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 kind of very animalistic. It's kind of from our lower brain. We're not truly thinking through like how we want to use that moment to magnify that moment. And definitely, I like that where he says this willingness is rare, right? There's no holding back, and that's very scary because a lot of times fear is what holds us back, um, and that'll get into later in this chapter. But uh, many men are willing to poke their woman and bloom her in a mediocre way, sharing a few orgasms and a few emotional moments of bonding before going over tomorrow's schedule. Many men are willing to poke the world and bloom it in a mediocre way, making a few bucks and contributing enough betterment so they don't feel like their life is a total waste. But very few men are willing to do the deed for real, to use everything they've got to liberate their woman and the world into the deepest possible truth, love, and openness. Few men are willing to give their deepest genius, their true endowment, the poetry of their very being, with every thrust of sex and life. Most men are limpened with doubts and uncertainties, or they hold back their true drive because of fear, so they diddle their woman and the world just enough to extract the pleasure and comfort they need to assuage their nagging sense of falsity and incompleteness. Um, yeah, Deida writes very well. I think he gets to the point, and it's very different. Right? You know, being with a guy that's that's kind of pleasure and comfort driven versus one that is, you know, willing to give all and despite all the fear. It's a very different feeling for the woman. Um, and I really like how he brings sex into this, penetrating the woman as if you're penetrating the world, because it's in both situations it's just action, but it's easier to start with sex because it's easy to feel love and intention for that versus something, you know, just your regular day to day actions and kind of starting with sex and then kind of expanding that to other areas of your life later. But I feel like, you know, if as a man, right, if he penetrated every moment with that same love and deep intention he would with his beloved woman, his life would be totally different, right? Every action, everything he does will have a different quality to it. But if you are willing to discover and embrace your truth, lean through your fears, and give everything you've got, you can penetrate the world and your woman from the core of your being and bloom them into love without limit. You can ravish your woman so deeply that her surrender breaks your heart into light. You can press yourself into the world with such endearing love that the world opens and receives your deepest gifts. Mhm. Oops. Okay, I had one comment that I forgot for the previous paragraph. So earlier they talked about fear. Um, Most men hold back because of fear. That's why they're not truly penetrating their woman or the world with their deepest gifts. And this fear a lot of times comes from the preoccupation with the self. So for example, like if they're afraid of what other people think, so they're not going to pursue their true calling and instead stay at a job that pays them well but they don't enjoy. Or if they're preoccupied by how their woman perceives them, then all they're thinking about when they're having sex is their performance and how good they are versus, the woman and what would truly open her. But it is very difficult, and I think it's something that takes a lot of practice. Okay. There's no essential difference between entering your woman's feminine heart and entering fully into the world. Both forms of intercourse, sexual and worldly, require sensitivity, spontaneity, and a strong connection to deep truth in order to penetrate chaos and closure in a way that love prevails. Um, I like the how he listed that sensitivity because like, you need to be able to feel what your woman is feeling and then kind of respond to her needs, being spontaneous or whatever the moment calls for. Because a lot of times I find that men can be kind of rigid, where it's like this is what I want to do, then this and this and this, and then like when we're having sex, this is the position we're going to do. Then we're going to switch this position and this one, rather than kind of spontaneous feeling the moment, what would truly serve the moment. And a strong connection to deep truth in order to penetrate chaos and closure. Um, so that's, I think, like being rooted in your core, um, that your deepest truth, because that's not really, you're kind of unshakable at that point. So any kind of chaos you would be able to overcome. Neither woman nor world are predictable. They will often seem to resist your gifts and test your capacity to persist. And just as surely, they will tenderly respond to the authenticity of your relaxed ministrations, the freedom expressed in your humor, and the invasion of your adamant love. They will open in love and receive you fully, only to resist and test you again, moments or days later. Neither woman nor world can be second guessed or fooled. They know when you are just dicking around. They want to receive you for real. Um, what I really like about this paragraph is how he talks about humor, because I feel like, you know, even though this book is the way of the superior man and how you can be kind of like the best man that you can be, it's important to have fun while doing it and not take it seriously. So to me, humor is like how a man can be relaxed. Even when he's giving his all, he's relaxed. Um, versus someone who's taking everything too seriously will be constantly tense, and actually, that's very unattractive. Um, and another interesting thing I thought was when he mentioned the invasion of your adamant love. Because I think true love, and this is capital L love, which is unconditional love, can really break down any barriers. And when you're coming from the deepest core of your truth, right, you have that integrity where you're true to your core, um, and you're like feeling others and giving them love. Like woman or the world, they have no choice but to bloom open. There are two ways to deal with woman and world without compromising your true gifts or dribbling away the force of your deep being. One way is to renounce sexual intimacy and worldliness, totally dedicating yourself without distraction or compromise to the path you choose to pursue, free of the seemingly constant demands of woman and the world. The other way is to fuck both to smithereens, to ravish them with your love unsheathed, to give your true gifts despite the constant tussle of woman and world, to smelt your authentic gifts in this friction of opposition and surrender, to thrust love from the freedom of your deep being, even as your body and mind die blissfully through a crucifixion of inevitable pleasure and pain, attraction and repulsion, gain and loss. No gifts left ungiven, no limit to the depth of being. Only openness, freedom, and love as the legacy of your intercourse with woman and the world. I think it's kind of obvious which option he prefers with these two paragraphs. But personally, I don't think there should be a dichotomy between the two. Um, there's also like kind of the middle way where you choose a woman that aligns with your mission. Um, and I also like how in the second paragraph here, what seems like a burden, which is kind of worldly things or a woman, the drama, kind of like that kind of stuff. It might seem like a burden, but it's also an anvil through which you strengthen the sword of your presence. Um, and I like how he wrote it here, to smelt your authentic gifts in this friction of opposition and surrender. If you are going to tryst with woman and the world at all, better to go all the way and ravish them from the depths of your true core, blooming them open with the wide gifts of your unrelenting heart. Otherwise, if you sheepishly penetrate them to gratify your own needs, your woman and the world will feel your lack of dedication, depth, and truth. Rather than yielding in love to your own loving, they will distract you, suck your energy, and draw you into endless complications so that your life and relationship become an almost constant search for release from constraint. I really like this. If you don't go all the way, they'll consume you. Woman will consume you. But if you give your all from your depth, whether the world or woman, they will open and bathe you with their light. Um, and I feel that as well as a woman. Right? If I feel a guy and I don't feel his depth. He's living a very superficial life. I'm going to give him a hard time. Okay, I would lose respect for him, and there's no way I would want to open or surrender to his direction at all. Yeah, he's. I'm going to challenge him, poke him, basically try to bring out the man in him, but probably doing it in a more negative way. You can be a renunciate and live alone, apart from woman and the world. But if you choose a life of sexual and worldly intercourse, you will feel trapped by woman and world unless you are free in the midst of true fuck, yielding yourself into the giving, holding nothing back, dissolving all time in the open of love. Through thick and thin, this is the way of the superior man. So this one, my comment is I like that he brings up freedom because freedom is the core value for the masculine. And to be truly free of these kind of worldly, material woman things, doesn't mean you have to give them up. You can be in the midst of them and still be completely free. And the way to do that is just to give everything, to penetrate everything to the from the depth of your being. Um, Holding nothing back, even if you feel fear, you're just moving forward despite the fear. And so I think that is why it's it's the way of the superior man because it's not easy um, to to look your fear in the eye and move past it and just continue giving your all. But that's the thing about this book, right? It teaches you how to overcome or face your fear so that you can truly give your deepest gifts to the world and to your woman. Let's see, what are any other notes here? Um, and yeah, the last comment I wanted to say is that there really isn't any other way to live. The only other way to live is this superficial, empty life that, while comfortable, never really feels fulfilling. It's only by kind of giving our all from our deepest part that we can feel fulfilled in the moment. And as a woman, it's very obvious. You can feel the difference in men who choose the former versus the latter. And let me say that there's not enough men who choose to give their all. So this one's a bit of a longer chapter. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week. Bye!